voice is a higher pitch, generally, that's the bit that is affected. So it's certainly something to bear in mind if you are being prescribed these sort of medications. An interesting thing to note is that there is a link between your body type and how much the symptoms of menopause affect you. Because if you have more fat cells, you will retain more estrogen. And if you retain more estrogen, then you have an easier ride through menopause, which is one of the theories behind the fact of middle-age spread, that our body is just holding on to more fat cells because it's going to help. HRT can be beneficial. Now, of course, any medication you need to discuss with your doctor. You need to be, have the right thing in the right amount for you. But just to know that if you're thinking about it, it's going to help your singing. It won't get in the way. This is I quoted this from a book that has been written about singing through change, because I just think it's a beautiful summary. We must be open to becoming a different singer through our changes, during which every part of our body is affected, from our fingernails to our intestines. Anecdotally and personally, we've learned that there can be a fulfilling and sometimes hidden truth to uncover in our vocal lives as we move through the years of perimenopause, postmenopause and aging. That truth may include releasing the need to meet the expectations of others, interest in exploring newly enhanced characteristics of the voice, and discovery of an overriding desire to impact others with our story through singing. When we go through the menopausal transformation and second voice change, we each react to and create our own unique physical, emotional, and spiritual journey. Isn't that beautiful? So that is menopause, which is a middle-age thing, really, isn't it? And then, as that we go through that, we're coming to getting a bit older. And we need to bear in mind, of course, that chronological age is not the same as biological age. So somebody can be 75 and really look and feel quite elderly. Someone else can be 75 and running marathons. So it all depends on you, on your body, and the way that you, partly the way that you look after yourself, but it's partly just genetics, actually. The preventable causes of aging are mostly lifestyle related. Yep. So diet, exercise, managing anxiety, and all the related things that go with that. And of course, accidents and infections. So we all know, I'm sure we've all known an elderly person in their 80s perhaps who's coping very well, getting about, doing their thing. They have a bad fall, break their hip, and things start to go downhill from then onwards. It doesn't have to. My mother-in-law fell and broke her hip at the beginning of the summer, and she's up and about and going out for walks and making a really good go at keeping going. So, if you've got the right attitude, you can cope, you can do it. What helps you to live longer? Well, the most important factor for helping you to live longer is community support. The number of friends that you have and the strength of that support, over and above all the lifestyle factors. So I would have thought that, whether you smoke and whether you drink too much and whether you're overweight, those sort of things would contribute more. But no, it's actually your community support. Most important. So what are we all doing in a choir? We are having community support. It's Really, really vital that we keep this going. Then next one down is all the lifestyle factors, and then having daughters, because having daughters is statistically going to help you to live longer because they are more likely to look after you and keep an eye on you. And if you haven't got any daughters, you have to go and adopt some. Find some surrogate daughters from somewhere. Or teach your sons to get on and pick up the job that needs to be done. So what's happening to our voices when we get older? Respiratory function, right? Reduced lung capacity. This is a thing, yeah? That from the age of 40, so that's not that old, from the age of 40, our lung capacity reduces a little bit each year. So that's 1% of what it was the year before, all right? That's not 1% of what it was when you were 40, so it's like compound interest going the other way around. But it means that you have a gradual decline in your lung function, in your lung capacity. So what do? We just don't, we have to breathe more often. We can't sing the longer phrases. Okay, so that's simple. Just breathe more frequently when you're singing. The reason why our lung function reduces is just because the tissues get thicker, they're not as flexible, we get less effective gas transfer, so we're getting air in, but we're not processing the oxygen CO2 transfer so easily. So all of those things. What else happens? Atrophy, that literally means things dying off, all right, getting weaker. In the vocal folds themselves, all right, things get weaker. The lamina propria, now this is one of the layers around the vocal folds. We've got the, I should have put a picture in of the vocal folds actually. Imagine, we've got the two vocal folds like this. We've got muscle in the middle. And then on the very outside, we've got epithelium, which is like, the lining of your mouth, that kind of wet skin. And between that and the muscle is the lamina propria. The lamina propria is basically layers of wobbly stuff, stretchy and wobbly, but quite elastic. And that loses the collagen as you get older. So just as your skin gets less elastic, so the surface of your vocal folds gets less elastic. And that means you've got less wobbling going on, which means, now the wobbling in your vocal folds is not vibrato, it is the quality of the sound, and it's the ability to heal the tissues. Okay. So things just get a bit more clunky and a bit less flexible. The vocal fold bowing means that the muscle within the vocal fold doesn't bulk out so happily. It's not as big and strong. Like all our muscles get like that in our bodies as we get older. They just get weaker. So I've been talking about the vocal folds being like that, all right? If we look from above the vocal folds, you see that. You see them coming together like that. And then they come apart when we breathe in, and then they come together when we make a sound. Now, if the muscle within the vocal fold is getting weaker, we get that. We get a hole in the middle. And the hole in the middle lets air through. So we get a more breathy sound, and it's more of a struggle to make the sound. That is more of an issue for men than it is for women. What else happens? We get arthritis. And, no surprise, we get arthritis in the larynx itself. So that means that the joint within the larynx gets a little bit stiffer, which means that we don't get into the higher pitches as easily. So all of these things that we know happen with your voice as you get older, we know why they happen. Also, we might have arthritis in our thoracic vertebrae, so that the rib mobility is reduced. The cartilages become bony, which means that we again have less flexibility, and we have slower signals from the brain. The slower signals from the brain will affect vibrato rate. Vibrato is a neurological thing. It's to do with the nerve signal from the brain going to the muscles of the larynx. If that nerve signal is travelling a bit slower, vibrato rate slows down and gets a bit wider. It's a thing. We know it happens. Now we know why it happens. So a lot of these things are just to do with accepting it and going with it and adapting, not trying to resist it or change it. Yep, it's like getting wrinkly. Yep, you are going to get more wrinkly as you get older. It's a thing. So male voices, we notice the atrophy more, we notice the breathiness more. Yep, and that can be an issue for elderly men, certainly for the much older men. It can be an issue because they are unable to speak loudly, they're unable to make their voices heard. And so if they're living with a partner who's hard of hearing, it can be really difficult for them. It can be really difficult quality of life consideration. What they will do, as we have the issues of trying to get the voice to speak, to get that strength in the voice, is you get what we call hyperfunction, which is all the muscles around the larynx working harder, squeezing harder, so you get more effort in the sound. And the effort doesn't necessarily improve the loudness, it just makes everything tighter and more difficult. And this business of the pitch going up and the sound getting a bit more squeaky and a bit more breathy, all right, we know that that's what happens, and Shakespeare wrote about it. Turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. That's from the 7 Ages of Man, that's the 6th age. What about female voices as they get older? So this isn't menopause, this is aging. So this is probably 70s and 80s. Yeah. We get a lowered pitch. So men's voices go up a bit and women's voices go down a bit. This measurement here, hertz, that's the number of collisions per second. Okay. So 240 hertz, that's about an A below middle C. Okay. Well, yes, just maybe B flat. 220 is the A below middle C. At the age of 70, it's gone down a lot. It's got a lot lower. Okay. And we're going to get hyperfunction and constriction also, because things get more difficult. What do? We squeeze and we push. Also, we're going to get loss of hearing. We might have loss of teeth, which will affect jaw alignment. All of these issues contribute. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste, sans everything. This is just a lovely little mock-up of the pitch. So this is what the male voice sounds like over a lifetime. This is the pitch, the average pitch of the male speaking voice from birth to death. And there's a click, and the click is every 10 years. Here it is. Okay, so that's what happens to the male voice. Let's listen to that again. This is what happens to the female voice. Okay, I'll do that again. And this is both together. And what happens at the end? They end up in the same place. Okay? And we know that when we talk to elderly people, there's virtually no difference between the male and the female speaking voice. They sound the same. So what can we do? Use it or lose it. Rule number 1, whatever happens, carry on singing. Yeah? So when I have people coming to me and saying, you know, my voice is not what it was, I can't do this, I think I should give up choir. And before I've even heard them sing, I say, on no account should you give up singing. What you might need to do is reconsider which voice part is going to be more comfortable. So for most women, they will find it more comfortable to come down. So sopranos may well find that alto is a better home for them. Some altos may even move down to tenor to feel more comfortable. And I know that's difficult because if you've been singing in a choir for years and you've got to know the parts, you've got to know what the soprano parts sound like for all the standard repertoire that you're used to singing and things, you know, the Messiah comes back year on year and you know your soprano parts. And then suddenly you've got to learn a whole load of new parts. Yeah, it is difficult, but it's possible. And if it means you can carry on singing and singing comfortably and not feeling like you're straining and pushing and just not doing your best, okay, you may need to reconsider the choir that you sing in. If you've been singing with a choir that is a very high standard and they re-audition every 3 years or so, and you're worried about getting through the re-audition, then if it's going to be difficult, is that the best place for you? And there will be another choir that you can join that'll welcome you with open arms. And other related factors like keeping up overall levels of exercise, which will make a big difference to your voice and your vocal health. Keep going for walks, keep exercising, keep dancing. Put the music on, turn it up loud, push the furniture back, and off you go. Keep dancing. Okay, I'm going to come out of the slide share now, and I'm going to go to questions. I've got questions, specific questions from people, and general questions. Now, some of them may have been answered by what I was talking about. Specific vocal health tips for women who sing tenor or bass. This was from Anne-Martine Humble. I would suggest that you make sure you keep your own voice quality, that you don't try and sound like a man. So don't be tempted to start sounding all blokish with your voice. Yeah, just use your voice in the pitch that you are comfortable in. And it may be that as you get lower, the men around you get stronger and more shouty, and your voice just gets a bit weaker. But then on the higher notes, you're going to be the winner. So just sing with your voice. Maintaining vocal health into later life. This is a question from Jane Roberts, which I think we've sort of covered quite a lot, but really just keep singing and keep exercising, because it's like any part of the body. Yeah, if you keep using it, you'll be able to use it for longer. If you stop, then it'll just get weaker and it won't work. And this is the huge challenge for us now. when we're not out and about, we're not going off to choir rehearsals in person, that we must keep up the singing on our own, in our own little space with our backing track, you know. Let's go through. Is there anybody who's actually here who put a question in who would like to just unmute and ask their own question? Robin, off you go. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Hi.
Oh, you've muted yourself again.
That was entirely my fault. I was trying to spotlight her and I hit the wrong button. Sorry, Robin.
That's okay, no problem.
Off you go again.
Often in my choir, after the concert is over, my voice is hoarse and it doesn't usually hurt, but I always wonder if maybe I've done some damage. Maybe I've sang too high or, whatever. So does that mean that the fact that it got, I can feel it afterwards, does that mean that I did something wrong?
It would just be a question of use. If you are doing a concert, there's a lot of singing all at once, yeah, and it's a little bit like the difference between, going for a 2-mile run and then running a marathon. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're used to running 2 miles and then you run a marathon, you're going to feel tired. Now, that's a perfectly normal response of the body, feeling a bit tired. The hoarseness is because when you're singing, you're literally getting the vocal folds to collide together a lot. And of course, when you're singing higher than you speak, they're colliding together more frequently. Yep, there's more collisions. So that's a lot of banging about. And as they're banging together over a long period of time, they get a little bit swollen. And as they get a little bit swollen, they don't vibrate as easily. And that's when you get the hoarseness in the voice. So that's just inflammation, which is a normal response. If it happens too frequently, then that might cause a problem. If it's just at the end of a concert, as long as you're all right a day or two later, you haven't done anything permanent. You just got a bit tired. Yeah.
Phew. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
So is there anything that I should do afterwards, or just let it, get better by itself?
So if you are feeling a little bit hoarse, your vocal folds are a bit more fragile. So what you could avoid is giving them a more intense workout. So if you've done a concert and your voice is a little bit hoarse, and you go to the pub afterwards and you're talking really loudly above background noise, that will not help your voice. So go and socialise afterwards and just do what you're doing now and nod and listen and smile. Yeah, don't be tempted to shout with a voice that's feeling a little bit fragile. Yeah, and it will get better. The other thing you can do is to work up your stamina. So the more you sing beforehand, the more you will improve your stamina. So overall fitness, again, is very important. And having kept singing, practice every day. And then it's not such a shock to the system. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. But don't worry about it. It's normal.
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
Good. Anybody else got a question they would like to unmute and ask? Melody, you got your arm up, hand up. Oh, you've unmuted and then muted again. Off you go.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is, what do you do when you're singing and you get that tickly sensation in your throat and your throat gets dry because your mouth has been open for a long time? And what can you do to keep that from happening or to relieve it once it does, or you start feeling like you're going to have a coughing fit? That happens to everybody in concerts, but it also is affecting this with the virtual choir thing, because I was trying to record last night, and after a while I was feeling that I had to stop certain recordings and start over again because I was having that issue. Is there anything I can do in the middle of?
Yes. I mean, the tickly sensation can be all sorts of things. It can be just an over sensitized vocal tract, and you're setting up vibrations there, and the vibrations are making a tickly feeling. It can be that you are a little bit dry. The vocal folds have got a little bit dry. The best way to sort it immediately is to swallow. And as you swallow, the mucus that is lubricating your vocal folds from above and below gets spread over the vocal folds. So that swallowing, that squeezing, will do a nice little lubrication for everything and reset it. So if you can stop and swallow, that will be the best way to sort it. If it is during a rehearsal or you're just practicing, then you can have a drink and you can swallow. And that, of course, makes swallowing easier if you've got something to swallow. The other thing that will keep encouraging you to swallow is if you have some kind of lozenge or pastil. And the best ones are going to be the really bland ones, you know, the glycerin pastils, the gentle ones. A boiled sweet would do something that encourages you to keep producing saliva and keep swallowing. You don't want one that's got any aggressive ingredients, so I would avoid all the ones like vocal zones and Fisherman's Friends and all of those quite strong ones, and go for the really gentle pastils. If you are sucking a lozenge whilst you're singing, beware. Because if you inhale it, that will be worse than getting a tickling sensation in your throat. Yeah.
I have occasionally been known to take things like, Ricolas and things and just tuck them way down under my cheek during concerts and things and
Yeah.
make them stay there.
Yes, you can do that. You can do that, and it just keeps the saliva being produced, which will keep you swallowing.
I mean, I have
That's
a whole
what it does.
that I would do, before rehearsal and concerts to do things like that. But there was that last night I stopped, and then I actually went down and got something warm to drink, and then went back and did it. But it was frustrating to have to keep stopping the recording and starting over again.
Yeah.
Because of that.
If you find that you've got into a place where you're just repeatedly getting that tickle, try stopping singing and going and doing steam inhalation. So just get a bowl of hot water, near boiling water, towel over your head, just gently do steaming for 5 minutes. Let it settle for 10 minutes and then go back to singing. Because that will reset.
That you can do, because I know I've had it where I've had to stop, and your eyes are tearing, and you're trying to fight having a full coughing fit, and I know other people have had to leave and everything because of that. I don't know. I had a choir director one time, and this guy, he's now teaching at USC in California, and he gave us this whole packet of things to do in case this itches, in case that happens, because we had to be. Our concert decorum was very, very strict, and what we did. And I think I remember him saying that there's a pressure point in between the web of your thumb, and it can stop the urge to cough. I don't remember all the rest of it. It was a huge packet, but.
Those things are quite often a useful distraction. If it works, go with it. Breath management. If you feel you're going to cough, exhale. Do a controlled, counted exhalation. and then let the air in, and do controlled counted exhalation. And just doing that will calm down the cough reflex. So there are lots of things you can do. Swallowing, and the point of the drinking and the pastil is not what you're drinking and what's in the pastil, it's that it makes you swallow. The swallowing is what does the good. So swallowing, breath management, calming. And you know what it's like when you get in a state and you think, I'm going to cough, I'm going to have a coughing fit, and it just eats you up completely. Yeah, that's when you need to do the breath management and the exhaling, because everything has got into a state of heightened sensitivity. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Melody.
Could I quickly ask, and I'm sorry if this has been covered already, but you said that it doesn't matter what's in the lozenge or whatever you drink, it's that it keeps you swallowing and keeps you producing saliva. Then what is it about vocal zones, and you said the more aggressive ingredients, that makes them less less able to recommend them?
Because the menthol is a pretty nasty thing to put in your throat. It stimulates cold receptors. It basically aggravates the tissues. So we get a response, and we take menthol and we think, oh, things feel different. Must be good. So it's not good for the throat particularly. Also, there will be some vapours which may go into the larynx. So
interesting, because it's the first time I've heard someone talk about it in that way.
Yeah, menthol is actually an irritant. In small quantities, it doesn't do anything. So the amount of mint that's in your toothpaste is okay, because you're not taking vast quantities of it. It's just going into your mouth and you spit it out again. It's small amounts of mint are fine, but the ones that make you tingle, yeah. Why do they make you tingle? Because they're irritating the membranes.
Gosh.
So don't.
There you go. Learn something new every day. Thanks,
Don't
Jenevora.
go near them. Yeah. The value is the swallowing. And so the same is true of anything that we have. Melody mentioned a hot drink. We might make honey and lemon. Okay. Honey and lemon is great because it feels nice. But the actual ingredients aren't doing anything at all for your voice. They just taste nice. But do you know what? Making yourself feel nice is most of the battle, isn't it? Just doing something, a bit of self-care. Yeah, just bit of love, bit of having something nice that feels good, it feels soothing. Go with it. Go with it. But it's not, the magic is in the placebo, not in the actual ingredients.
I saw that Lane had a very polite hand raised.
Oh, Lane, would you like to ask your question?
I would like to ask my question, but I would also like to say, actually, my husband used to be, or maybe he still is, very affected. He couldn't take mints and menthols, sweets and things, because it would make him sneeze. So yeah, he always knew that mints were an irritant. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I think you've already answered my question in your slideshow, which was so interesting, not the least because of all the dwarves. And it was about my tessitura and maintaining my tessitura, because my background is more in pop singing. So I have a very strong chest voice and not much of a head voice. But classical choral pieces, the tessitura is quite high. And so you've pretty much answered the question. I just have to make peace with someday becoming a tenor when singing classical pieces.
Well,
but I also had a question. Well, yeah.
Or alto. I mean, the alto parts.
I'm a second alto already.
Yeah, yeah. The other thing is exercise, Lane. The more you exercise it, it's like any range of movement in the body. You know, if you do yoga every day, you'll carry on being able to do your, you know, your lunges and your downward dog and all those sort of things. If you give up for a year and come back to it, you're going to be a bit stiffer.
Right.
Yeah. So keep singing, keep that range going, keep just, you know, buzzing up and down through the range, doing
Will
little
do.
slides on a those sort of things.
Will do. I was actually just based on your presentation, and how Tori and Jamie both have referred to singers as vocal athletes. So do professional singers, is there an age at which they retire due to aging? I mean, like other athletes?
Yeah, I mean, retiring from the sort of, I mean, if you look at perhaps opera singers, which is a really demanding schedule, they will tend to retire. I mean, different people do it at different ages, but you don't get many people post 60. Some male opera singers you do, but it depends. I mean, it depends on the individual. But yes, they will retire from professional performing just because it's such a heavy, demanding workload. But they don't stop singing.
Right.
They carry on singing. And they'll carry on doing, you know, concerts and guest appearances and teaching. You know, when we're teaching, we're demonstrating all the time and using our voices.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
Has anybody else got a question?
I've seen Martha with her hand up a couple of times. Martha.
Martha. Where's Martha?
I'm here.
Ah.
I am blessed with an inconsistent missing up to a fifth of my voice in the middle voice. I can usually still sing the top. I can usually still sing the bottom. How can I bridge that?
It's tricky, isn't it?
Very.
It's tricky. Have you worked with a singing teacher on it? Have you been given any exercises?
I have.
Yeah. Do they help?
Sometimes.
I mean, it is literally just nudging the boundaries a bit, bringing the higher voice down a bit and bringing the lower voice up a bit. And just very gently working your way through both of those ranges. Now, one of the main messages that I try and get through to people is work with what you can do before you start working on what you can't do. So work with the comfortable part of your voice. Yeah, really get that to feel that it's fluid, that it's subtle and supple, that you can do what you want to with the comfortable part of your pitch range. And if you get that bit working really well, then you can start to extend the pitch range of that comfortable part of your voice, whether this is the top end or the bottom end. Yeah. So really enjoy the bits that you can do to start with. Work with those and because what will be happening is that if you're anxious about the bits that you can't do, the whole lot will go into a bit of a holding pattern. And you'll be a little bit tense throughout your whole vocal range, just because you're worried about the bits that, you know, the problems that are waiting around the corner. So that is why you work with what you can do comfortably and get that to be really secure and really reliable and really happy part of your voice. And then you may find that those boundaries shift slightly.
Do you have an amount of time that you recommend that we spend per day?
Frequency is more useful, actually.
Okay.
So 3 short sessions a day is more useful than 1 longer one, for example.
Okay.
So just 5 to 10 minutes of exercises 3 times a day.
Singing in the shower, during the washing up, and while you're walking the dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so frequency is more useful.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
On that note, actually, Genevra, that reminds me of an old adage, I think is repeated a lot in conservatoire study. When I was studying at the academy, there was the number that was thrown around was a minimum of 4 hours a day of practice of your instrument, and that was repeated by so many people. And as a singer, if I tried to sing for 4 hours non-stop, I know full well I wouldn't be able to talk for the rest of the day after that. And you very quickly realize that exactly that okay, I can do half-hour practice, then a bit of a break while I learn some text for this aria, or another half hour some more text, another half hour some translations. And it is this constant building, in the same way that Usain Bolt didn't suddenly run whichever race he ran, however quickly he ran it. I should know that, shouldn't I? It's this process, always this process of thinking, okay, I know now that I've sorted out my R vowel, I'm going to spend half an hour working on my E vowel. You can really break it down. How much should we really delve deep into that, Genevra? What's your opinion on really getting into the nitty-gritty of rehearsal?
Well, pacing is really important. And when you think of performance, you very rarely sing flat out for, an hour. There's always a bit of orchestral interlude. There's a bit of one of the other parts singing. There will be rest parts built into the structure of whatever you're singing. And so you need to take that into consideration when you're practicing, because when you're practicing, you just sing. And you sing over and over again and going around. So remember that you will have mini breaks all the time in a performance. So you need mini breaks all the time when you're practicing. And we know there are various things that we know about vocal fatigue. And one of them is that the membranes of the vocal folds will heal more effectively if you give your voice lots of mini breaks rather than one long break. So this is the same amount of minutes of singing and minutes of rest. Right? If you have 40 minutes of singing and 20 minutes of rest, that's more tiring for your voice than if you have 10 lots of 4 minutes of singing with tiny bits of rest in between them, adding up to the same. Okay? Mini breaks are really important. So when you are practicing, you need to keep your eye on the clock. And you need to know, I'm going to do this exercise for 5 minutes, 4 minutes, and then you do something else for a minute. And the something else might just be a bit of, moving around and getting your, standing up, moving about, touch your toes up to the ceiling, back you come, do the next bit of vocalizing. So it's working in all of that. And then, as you said, Jamie, you can use the time to listen to a recording of somebody. You can look through the accompaniment. You can work through the text. There's loads of things you can do with the time, that aren't actually vocalizing. The other thing you can do is imagined practice. And we know this is a really important way that your brain learns information. Once you can do something, once you know a song, you know how it goes, you can go through it in your imagination. Silent practice, going through at the right speed. Yep. So you imagine you can follow the score in front of you. You can just do it in your imagination. You go through it, you can mouth the words even without letting any sound out at all. And your brain is reinforcing and rehearsing the pathways, and it will be learning the song and getting better at doing it without making a sound. And this practice works for any skill that you already know. So you can imagine your piano playing and you will get better at it. You can imagine your violin playing, you can imagine your golf swing, you know, whatever you can already do. You can't learn a new skill this way. To learn a new skill, you've got to actually do it. Yep. But once you know it, you can rehearse it in your brain.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting to think you don't actually have to be physically practicing in order to be going through the motions that you need in order to strengthen that muscle memory, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just reinforcing those pathways in the brain.
So interesting. Actually, guys, that feeds back to something that we said right in that first rehearsal of your brain being clever and understanding concepts very quickly, and your dumb body taking a while to catch up with the muscle memory. So just to link that in, it is definitely a thing. Please be kind to yourself and forgive yourself if your body takes a little longer to learn and reinforce new concepts. Genevra, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear from you again. And thank you to everybody in the Zoom room who has brought questions, asked them and joined in with our discussion as we get to the bottom of this bizarre thing called singing. And I hope that we'll be welcoming you back for another project very soon, Genevra. Is it too early to say Merry Christmas?
Yes.
Probably. But since this is our Christmas project, we send you off with best wishes for a festive Christmas season.
Thank you very much, Tori, and thank you for inviting me today.
You're very welcome. Thanks
Lovely
for joining us, everybody. See you
so much.
soon.
Anybody watching on the YouTube stream, the beginning of this will be available very soon. So check back a little bit later. You'll be able to see the beginning. See you soon.
Right. Thanks,
Bye.
guys. Bye.